The biting cold felt like 1,000 knives against Bella Johnson's skin as she stumbled through knee-deep snow, her vision obscured by the relentless blizzard that had trapped her in its merciless grasp for what felt like an eternity. It was February 1876, and what had started as a routine journey to visit her ailing grandmother in Denver had turned into a nightmare when the stagecoach was ambushed by bandits who scattered the passengers into the wilderness just as the storm hit. "Just a little farther," Bella whispered to herself, her voice barely audible above the howling wind. Her once fine traveling dress hung in tatters around her slight frame, and her fingers had long since gone numb. The supplies she'd managed to salvage from the overturned coach were depleted, and it had been a full day since she'd eaten anything more substantial than a handful of snow. At 22, Bella had prided herself on her independence and resilience. After losing her parents to influenza 3 years prior, she had taken over managing their modest dry goods store in Missouri with determination and business sense that surprised the local townsfolk. But now, lost in the unforgiving Colorado wilderness, her confidence was as frozen as her limbs. The sun was setting quickly, casting long shadows across the pristine white landscape. Bella knew that without shelter she wouldn't survive another night. Her legs buckled beneath her and she collapsed into the snow, tears freezing on her cheeks before they could fully fall. "This can't be how it ends," she murmured, struggling to rise again. Her vision blurred, dark spots dancing before her eyes. Just as consciousness began to slip away, she thought she heard the distant sound of hoofbeats cutting through the storm. Miles away, Finn Reeves pulled his hat lower to shield his face from the relentless snow. The 30-year-old rancher had been out searching for strays when the blizzard hit, forcing him to seek shelter in an abandoned trapper's cabin for 2 days. Now that the worst had passed, he was making his way back to his ranch outside of Greeley, Colorado. The settlement had grown considerably in the 6 years since the railroad arrived, but the surrounding wilderness remained untamed and dangerous, especially in winter. As he guided his sturdy paint horse through a clearing, something caught his eye, a splash of color against the endless white. Squinting through the falling snow, he could just make out what appeared to be a human form. "Whoa, boy," he said, reining in his mount and dismounting in one fluid motion. His boots sank deep into the snow as he trudged toward the figure. As he drew closer, he realized it was a woman, her blue traveling dress stark against the white ground, her dark hair spilling across the snow like spilled ink. Finn knelt beside her, fearing the worst as he gently turned her over. Her face was pale as the snow around them, lips tinged with blue, but a faint cloud of breath escaped her mouth. Relief washed over him. She was alive, but barely. "Miss, can you hear me?" he asked, removing his heavy coat and wrapping it around her still form. The woman's eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes the color of summer honey, disoriented and filled with fear. "It's all right," Finn said softly, gathering her in his arms. "You're safe now, I found you." Bella's vision swam as she tried to focus on the face above her. A man with a beard dusted with snow and eyes as blue as a clear summer sky was looking down at her with concern. Was he real, or had her mind conjured him in her final moments? "Am I dead?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. A small smile touched the stranger's lips. "No, madam." "Not on my watch." He lifted her as if she weighed nothing, carrying her to his horse. "My ranch isn't far, we need to get you warm." Finn settled her in the saddle before mounting behind her, one arm securely around her waist as he took the reins with his free hand. Bella felt herself leaning back against his solid chest, his warmth seeping through the coat he'd wrapped around her. "What's your name?" he asked, urging his horse forward. "Bella," she managed through chattering teeth. "Bella Johnson, I'm Finn Reeves. You're going to be all right, Miss Johnson. Just stay with me." Bella wanted to respond, to thank him, but darkness was creeping in at the edges of her vision. The last thing she remembered was the steady rhythm of the horse's gait and the feeling of being held securely as consciousness slipped away. When Bella next opened her eyes, she was lying in a bed beside a roaring fire. The room was simple but clean, with rough-hewn log walls and a window frosted with ice patterns. She was dressed in a flannel nightgown that wasn't her own, and her hands and feet tingled painfully as circulation returned. "You're awake," a woman's voice said. Bella turned her head to see an older woman with silver-streaked dark hair setting a tray on the bedside table. I was beginning to worry. I'm Martha Wilkins, Mr. Reeves' housekeeper. How long have I been asleep? Bella asked, her voice hoarse. Nearly a full day. Mr. Reeves found you yesterday afternoon. It's a miracle you survived out there. Martha helped Bella sit up and place the tray across her lap. Steam rose from a bowl of fragrant broth. You need to eat, but slowly. Your body's been through an ordeal. As Bella sipped the broth, Martha explained that she had been brought to Finn Reeves' ranch, about 5 miles outside of Greeley. The doctor had been by to examine her while she slept and declared that, while she had moderate frostbite on her fingers and toes, she would recover fully with proper care. Where is Mr. Reeves? Bella asked when she had finished the broth and Martha had replaced it with a cup of tea. He's out checking the cattle. The storm hit his herd hard. He'll be pleased to know you're awake. Martha busied herself straightening the room. He carried you in here looking half frozen to death, said he found you miles from any road. How did you end up out there alone, if you don't mind my asking? Bella recounted the stagecoach ambush, explaining how she had become separated from the other passengers in the chaos and subsequent blizzard. Those must be the same outlaws that have been causing trouble around these parts, Martha mused. The sheriff's been after them for months. She took the empty cup from Bella's hands. You rest now. I'll let Mr. Reeves know you're awake when he returns. Bella sank back against the pillows, exhaustion claiming her again despite having slept for so long. The next time she woke, the light coming through the window had changed, suggesting it was now late afternoon. She heard the sound of a door opening and closing somewhere in the house, followed by the murmur of voices. Minutes later, there was a soft knock at the bedroom door and Finn Reeves entered, removing his hat as he did so. Without the snow and wind obscuring her vision, Bella could see him clearly for the first time. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his face weathered by sun and wind but handsome, with a strong jaw covered by a neatly trimmed beard. His eyes were indeed as blue as she remembered, reminding her of the summer sky over the Missouri plains. Miss Johnson, he said, his deep voice filling the room. It's good to see you awake. How are you feeling? Much better, thanks to you, Bella replied. I don't know how to thank you for saving my life, Mr. Reeves. He waved off her gratitude, pulling a chair closer to the bed and sitting down. Anyone would have done the same. You're lucky I found you when I did. Another hour out there. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. They both knew what would have happened. Martha tells me you were on a stagecoach that was attacked, he continued. The sheriff rode out this morning to look for other survivors. They found the coach and the driver's body, but no sign of anyone else. Bella's hand flew to her mouth. Poor Mr. Daniels. He was kind to me on the journey. She closed her eyes briefly, remembering the driver's cheerful demeanor as he'd helped her aboard in Denver. There were 3 other passengers, a married couple returning to their ranch and a salesman. Do you think they? Hard to say, Finn replied honestly. If they found shelter, they might have survived. The sheriff's still searching. He leaned forward slightly. Can you tell me anything about the men who attacked you? Bella described the ambush as best she could remember 4 men with bandanas covering their faces, their sudden appearance as the coach rounded a bend in the road. How they'd demanded valuables from the passengers before one of them spooked at the sound of approaching riders and fired his gun into the air, causing the horses to bolt. The coach had overturned, and in the confusion, Bella had been thrown clear. By the time she'd regained her senses, the bandits were gone, and so were the other passengers. I called out, but the storm was getting worse and I couldn't see anyone, she explained. I thought I was following the road, but the snow covered everything. I just kept walking, hoping to find shelter. She looked down at her bandaged hands. I don't remember much after the first night. Finn nodded, his expression grim. Sounds like the Carson gang. They've been targeting stagecoaches between Denver and Greeley for months. He stood, placing his hat back on his head. I need to let the sheriff know what you've told me. It might help them track down these men. Of course, Bella agreed. Mr. Reeves, I hate to impose further, but do you know when I might be able to continue to Greeley? My grandmother is expecting me and she'll be worried sick. Your grandmother lives in Greeley? Finn asked, surprise evident in his voice. No, Denver. I was just passing through Greeley on my way back to Missouri after visiting her. The stagecoach was supposed to stop there for the night before continuing east. I see, Finn considered for a moment. The doctor says you need at least a week of rest before traveling. The frostbite on your toes needs careful attention or you could lose them. Seeing her distress, he added, I'll send word to the telegraph office in Greeley tomorrow. They can get a message to your grandmother in Denver letting her know you're safe. Relief washed over Bella. Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't found me. A small smile softened his features. Get some rest, Miss Johnson. Martha will bring you dinner shortly. We can talk more tomorrow. After Finn left, Bella sank back against the pillows, overwhelmed by the events of the past few days. She was alive, thanks to the kindness of a stranger who had risked his own safety to save her. As she drifted back to sleep, her last thought was of blue eyes and the deep voice that had promised she was safe. Over the next few days, Bella's strength gradually returned. By the fourth day, she was able to leave the bed for short periods, sitting in a chair by the window to watch the snow-covered landscape of Finn's ranch. It was larger than she had initially thought, a substantial two-story house with a barn and several outbuildings visible from her window. In the distance, she could see cattle huddled together in sheltered areas, their dark shapes stark against the white ground. Martha had provided her with clothes, simple but well-made dresses that the housekeeper explained had belonged to Finn's late sister, who had passed away from tuberculosis 2 years prior. They've just been sitting in a trunk, Martha had assured her when Bella expressed concern about taking them. Emily would have wanted them to be used. On the fifth morning after her rescue, Bella made her way carefully down the stairs, her bandaged toes making her steps tentative. She found Martha in the kitchen, kneading dough at a large wooden table. Well, look at you, the older woman said with a smile. Getting around on your own now, how do you feel? Much better, Bella replied, easing herself onto a chair. I thought I might help with something today. I'm not used to being idle. Martha chuckled, continuing to work the dough with practiced movements. I suppose you could help me with these biscuits if you're feeling up to it. Mr. Reeves is partial to them with his morning coffee. As they worked side by side, Bella learned more about her rescuer. Finn had inherited the ranch from his father 7 years ago and had expanded it significantly since then. He was respected in the community for his fair dealings and had served briefly as a deputy before deciding that ranching was his true calling. He's a good man, Martha said as she placed the finished biscuits in the oven. Works harder than any man I've known, except maybe his father. Too hard sometimes, doesn't take enough time for himself. Doesn't he have a family of his own? Bella asked, then immediately felt intrusive. I'm sorry, that's not my business. Martha waved off her apology. No need to apologize. No, he's not married. Came close once, about 4 years back. A young lady from back east visiting relatives in Greeley. Her father had investments in the railroad. She wiped her hands on her apron. Seemed smitten with each other, but when it came time for her to return home, she couldn't imagine a life out here. Too rough for her sensibilities, I suppose. Bella thought of her own life in Missouri. While not as wild as the Colorado Territory, it was certainly not as refined as the eastern cities. She had never minded the simpler way of life, finding satisfaction in honest work and the close-knit community. The sound of the front door opening interrupted her thoughts. Finn entered, stamping snow from his boots in the entryway. His face registered surprise when he saw Bella sitting at the kitchen table. Miss Johnson, he said, removing his hat. I didn't expect to see you up and about so soon. Doctor. Winters said it would do her good to move around a bit, Martha explained, pouring coffee into a mug and handing it to him. As long as she doesn't overdo it. Finn nodded, taking a seat across from Bella. The sheriff stopped by the north pasture this morning, he said after taking a sip of coffee. They found one of the other passengers from your stagecoach, the salesman. He managed to make it to a trapper's cabin and waited out the storm there. He's in Greeley now, recovering at the hotel. And the couple? Bella asked hopefully. Finn's expression sobered. No sign of them yet. But the good news is they've identified 2 of the men who attacked your coach. The Carson brothers have been seen around Fort Collins, and there's a posse forming to bring them in. That's something, at least, Bella said, thinking of the frightened faces of her fellow passengers during the ambush. I hope they're found soon and brought to justice. They will be, Finn assured her. The territorial governor has taken a personal interest in stopping these attacks. The railroad can't prosper if travelers don't feel safe. He finished his coffee and stood. I've got to check the South Range today. We lost some cattle in that ravine during the storm. Could I? Bella hesitated, then pushed on. Could I perhaps come with you just to the edge of the property? I'm feeling much stronger and some fresh air would do me good. Finn looked skeptical, but Martha intervened. The doctor did say movement would help with her circulation, and it's a fine day, cold but clear. It would do her good to get out of the house for a spell. Very well, Finn conceded, though he still seemed uncertain. But we'll take the sleigh, not the horses, and you'll stay bundled up. I don't want to explain to Dr. Winters how you caught pneumonia under my care. An hour later, Bella found herself seated beside Finn in a small sleigh, wrapped in blankets and furs against the cold. The sun shone brightly on the snow-covered landscape, making it sparkle like millions of tiny diamonds. Despite the chill, Bella felt a sense of exhilaration as the sleigh glided smoothly over the packed snow. It's beautiful, she said, taking in the vast expanse of Finn's ranch. Rolling hills stretched as far as she could see, with stands of pine trees breaking up the white landscape. In the distance, the Rocky Mountains rose majestically against the clear blue sky. That it is, Finn agreed, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. I never tire of this view. Every season brings something different, but winter has its own kind of beauty. They traveled in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the jingling of the harness bells and the soft swoosh of the sleigh runners on the snow. Bella stole glances at Finn's profile as he guided the horses. There was something compelling about his quiet strength and the careful way he handled the reins, firm but never harsh. Tell me about your life in Missouri, he said suddenly, breaking the silence. Martha mentioned you run a store there, Bella nodded, a dry goods store in Lexington. It belonged to my parents, but they passed away 3 years ago during an influenza outbreak. I've been managing it since then. That couldn't have been easy, taking on such responsibility at a young age, Finn observed. It wasn't, Bella admitted. There were plenty who thought I should sell the business, that it wasn't proper for a young, unmarried woman to run a store on her own. But it was my parents' legacy, and I couldn't bear to part with it. And you've made it work, Finn said. It wasn't a question but a statement of fact. Yes, though not without challenges. The river trade isn't what it once was, with the railroads taking more and more business. She smiled ruefully. That's partly why I went to visit my grandmother in Denver to see if expanding into the territories might be viable for our business. Finn guided the sleigh around a bend in the trail, revealing a small valley where a herd of cattle huddled together near a frozen creek. He reined in the horses to a stop on a small rise overlooking the scene. And what did you conclude? He asked, turning slightly to face her. About expanding west. Bella considered the question, watching as ranch hands on horseback moved among the cattle, checking for signs of illness or injury after the storm. I think there's opportunity here, she said thoughtfully. Denver is growing rapidly, and settlements like Greeley have needs that aren't being fully met by local merchants, but the risks are considerable too. Finn nodded, his gaze following hers to the activity below. Risk is part of life out here, but so is reward. He pointed to the far side of the valley. When I took over this ranch, it was less than half its current size. My father thought I was crazy to take on more debt to expand, but I saw what this land could be. Something in his voice, pride mixed with a hint of defiance, resonated with Bella. She too had faced doubters, people who believed she was reaching beyond her station or capabilities. It's not always easy to follow your conviction when others question it, she said softly. No, he agreed, meeting her eyes, but sometimes it's the only way to live with yourself. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, a current of understanding passing between them. Then Finn broke the gaze, turning his attention back to the horses. We should head back. You're still recovering, and I don't want to tire you out. As they returned to the ranch house, Bella found herself more relaxed in Finn's company. They discussed everything from books they had read to their favorite seasons, discovering a shared appreciation for autumn and its vibrant colors. By the time they arrived back at the house, Bella felt as though she had known Finn far longer than just a few days. That evening, as Martha served a hearty stew for dinner, Finn brought up the topic of Bella's return journey. "Dr. Winters is coming by tomorrow to check your progress," he said. "If he's satisfied with your recovery, we can arrange for you to travel to Greeley in a few days. The stage to Missouri leaves twice weekly from there." Bella felt a strange pang at the thought of leaving. She had responsibilities back home, of course, and she didn't want to impose on Finn's hospitality any longer than necessary, but part of her was reluctant to say goodbye to this place and the man who had saved her life. "That would be fine," she said, trying to keep her voice neutral. "I've already imposed on your kindness far too long." "It's been no imposition," Finn replied, a hint of something indefinable in his tone. "In fact, it's been pleasant having company." Martha, who had been quietly observing their exchange, smiled knowingly as she collected the empty bowls. "It certainly has brightened up this house, having a young lady around. Reminds me of when Emily was still with us." A shadow passed over Finn's features at the mention of his sister, but it cleared quickly. "Yes, well, Miss Johnson has her own life to return to. We can't keep her here indefinitely." "Of course not," Martha agreed, though her expression suggested she might not be entirely opposed to the idea. Later that night, as Bella prepared for bed, she found herself reflecting on her time at the ranch. In less than a week, Finn Reeves had gone from being a stranger who rescued her to someone she felt a growing connection with. His quiet strength, his dedication to his land, and the glimpses of gentle humor that occasionally broke through his reserved demeanor had all combined to create an impression that she suspected would stay with her long after she returned to Missouri. The next morning, Dr. Winters pronounced Bella well enough to travel, though he cautioned her to continue caring for her healing frostbite. "You're a fortunate young woman, Miss Johnson," the elderly physician said as he packed away his instruments. "Not many survive 3 days alone in a blizzard." "I know," Bella replied solemnly, "if Mr. Reeves hadn't found me when he did." "Yes, well, Finn has always had a knack for being in the right place at the right time," Dr. Winters said with a slight smile. "It's part of what makes him such a successful rancher, that and his stubborn determination." After the doctor left, Finn informed Bella that he had arranged for her to travel to Greeley in 2 days' time. "I'll drive you in myself," he said. "There's business I need to attend to in town anyway." The next day passed quickly, with Bella helping Martha with household tasks as much as her healing injuries allowed. In the evening, Finn joined them in the sitting room, something he rarely did according to Martha's surprised but pleased expression. He brought out a chess set, and Bella discovered another shared interest as they played a competitive game that ended in her narrow victory. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Finn asked, studying the board with a mixture of admiration and chagrin. "My father taught me," Bella explained. "He said it would help me think strategically in business. I think he just enjoyed having someone to play with who would eventually provide a challenge." "Well, he succeeded," Finn said with a laugh, the sound warming the room. "I haven't been beaten so thoroughly in years." The easy camaraderie of the evening made the prospect of leaving the next day even more bittersweet for Bella. As she lay in bed that night, she wondered if Finn felt it too, this unexpected connection between them, or if she was merely another person he had helped, one of many who had passed through his life. The morning of Bella's departure dawned clear and cold. Martha had packed a basket of provisions for her journey and wrapped her in a warm shawl that had belonged to Emily. "Something to remember us by," the housekeeper said with misty eyes as she embraced Bella. "I could never forget you or your kindness," Bella assured her, returning the embrace warmly. Finn waited by the front door, his expression unreadable as he helped Bella into her coat. The wagon ride to Greeley was mostly silent, each lost in their own thoughts as the landscape rolled by. It was only when the town came into view that Finn finally spoke. "I've been thinking," he said, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, "about what you said regarding expanding your business westward." "Oh," Bella prompted when he didn't immediately continue. "Greeley could use a proper dry goods store," he said. "The general mercantile carries basic supplies, but they don't have the variety or quality that a dedicated establishment could offer. With the railroad bringing new settlers every month, there's growing demand." Bella considered his words, her mind already calculating potential costs and benefits. "It would be a significant undertaking. I'd need to secure a location, establish supply lines, find trustworthy staff." The building next to the land office is available for lease, Finn said, as if he'd already given the matter considerable thought. It was a millinery shop until Mrs. Patterson decided to retire last month. Good location, right on the main street. Bella glanced at him curiously. You seem to have given this some thought. A faint flush colored Finn's cheeks above his beard. I may have made some inquiries in town yesterday, just in case you were interested. Something warm bloomed in Bella's chest at the realization that he had been thinking about ways she might stay or at least return to Greeley. That's very thoughtful of you, Mr. Reeves. Finn, he corrected. After all we've been through, I think we can dispense with formalities. Finn, she agreed, liking how his name felt on her lips. And you must call me Bella. They reached Greeley just before noon. The town was bustling with activity, significantly larger and more developed than Bella had expected. Finn guided the wagon down the main street, pointing out various establishments: the bank, the newspaper office, the hotel where she would stay until the stage departed for Missouri. He pulled up in front of the hotel, a respectable two-story building with a wide porch. I'll see to your room, he said, helping her down from the wagon. Inside, after Bella was checked in and her small bag taken to her room, they stood somewhat awkwardly in the hotel lobby. Thank you, Bella said finally. For everything. For saving my life, for your hospitality, for… She gestured vaguely, unable to articulate the myriad ways in which he had affected her in such a short time. It was my pleasure, Finn replied, his blue eyes holding hers. Truly. A silence stretched between them, filled with things unsaid. Bella found herself wishing for more time, for a chance to explore whatever this feeling was that had developed between them. The stage leaves tomorrow at 10, Finn said, breaking the silence. I have some business at the land office this afternoon, but perhaps… Would you allow me to take you to dinner this evening? There's a decent restaurant just down the street. I'd like that very much, Bella replied, unable to keep the smile from her face. 7 o'clock then, Finn said, a matching smile brightening his features. With a tip of his hat, he departed, leaving Bella to wonder what the evening might bring. The hotel room was comfortable if plain, with a bed, washstand, and small writing desk. After freshening up, Bella decided to explore the town. Despite her ordeal, she was still a businesswoman, and Finn's suggestion about a dry goods store had planted a seed in her mind. She spent the afternoon walking the streets of Greeley, noting the mix of businesses already established and the gaps that existed in the market. The building Finn had mentioned, the former millinery shop, was indeed well situated, with large windows that would display merchandise effectively and enough space for a substantial inventory. As she stood outside, contemplating the possibilities, a woman's voice interrupted her thoughts. Thinking of opening a shop, Bella turned to see a well-dressed woman in her 30s regarding her with friendly curiosity. Just considering the possibility, Bella replied. I own a dry goods store in Missouri and was wondering if a similar establishment might succeed here. I'd say it would, the woman said decisively. I'm Clara Winters, the doctor's wife, and you must be Miss Johnson. My husband mentioned treating you at the Reeves Ranch. They fell into easy conversation, with Clara providing valuable insights into the town's needs and growth prospects. By the time they parted ways, Bella had a much clearer picture of what a business in Greeley might require and the potential it held. Back at the hotel, Bella spent time writing in her journal, recording both her harrowing experience in the blizzard and her thoughts on possibly expanding her business westward. As the clock neared 7, she changed into the best of the dresses Martha had given her, a deep blue wool that complemented her complexion and brought out the gold in her honey-colored eyes. Precisely at 7, there was a knock at her door. Finn stood in the hallway, freshly shaved and dressed in what was clearly his best suit. He had even trimmed his beard, revealing more of his strong jawline. The sight of him made Bella's heart beat a little faster. You look beautiful, he said simply, offering his arm. Thank you, she replied, taking it. You clean up rather well yourself. The restaurant was modest but charming, with checkered tablecloths and candles providing warm light. Over a meal of roast beef and potatoes, they talked more freely than they had before, sharing stories from their pasts and hopes for their futures. I've always wanted to travel, Bella confessed as they lingered over apple pie. To see more of the country, perhaps even Europe someday. My parents never had the opportunity, always being tied to the store. What's stopping you? Finn asked, watching her over the rim of his coffee cup. Responsibility, I suppose. The store needs me and there's no one else to run it. She traced the rim of her plate with her finger thoughtfully. Though I have been training young Thomas Harper to manage things in my absence, he has good business sense. Perhaps he could manage longer periods, Finn suggested, allowing you to establish a second location here in Greeley, for instance. Bella looked up at him, seeing the hope barely concealed in his expression. Perhaps, she agreed softly, it would be a significant change. Change can be good, Finn said, reaching across the table to briefly touch her hand. The contact sent a pleasant warmth up her arm. After dinner, despite the cold, they walked slowly back to the hotel, neither seeming eager for the evening to end. The stars shone brightly overhead, the sky clearer than Bella had ever seen it in Missouri. Will you write? Finn asked as they reached the hotel entrance. After you return home. If you'd like me to, Bella replied, turning to face him. I would, he said earnestly. Very much. In the soft light spilling from the hotel windows, Finn's blue eyes seemed to hold a universe of unspoken feelings. Slowly, giving her time to object, he leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to her lips. It was brief but perfect, a promise of possibilities. Good night, Bella, he said softly as he stepped back. Good night, Finn, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. That night, as Bella lay in bed, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The prospect of returning to Missouri felt increasingly like taking a step backward rather than forward. In just a few days, Greeley and more specifically, Finn Reeves had come to represent a future she hadn't previously considered, but now found herself yearning for. She rose early the next morning, her decision made. After breakfast, she made her way to the telegraph office and sent 2 messages. One to her grandmother in Denver, explaining her delay and new plans, and another to Thomas Harper at her store in Missouri, with detailed instructions. By the time Finn arrived at the hotel just before 10, Bella was waiting in the lobby with her bag. I thought I'd see you off, he said, his expression a careful mask that didn't quite hide his sadness. That won't be necessary, Bella replied, a small smile playing at her lips. I'm not leaving today, confusion flickered across Finn's face. You're not? No, she said, her smile growing. I've decided to stay in Greeley for at least 2 weeks to properly investigate the business opportunity you mentioned. If it seems viable, I'll return to Missouri to make arrangements, but with the intention of coming back. The joy that transformed Finn's features was like the sun breaking through clouds after a storm. You're staying? For now, Bella said, not wanting to promise more than she could guarantee. There's much to consider, many details to arrange, but yes, I'm staying. Finn took her hand, his grip warm and sure. I can't tell you how happy that makes me. I think I have some idea, Bella replied, squeezing his hand in return. Now, I believe you mentioned a building I should look at. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Bella threw herself into researching what establishing a store in Greeley would entail. Finn introduced her to key figures in the community, the banker, the mayor, other business owners, all of whom welcomed the prospect of a quality dry goods establishment in their growing town. She secured a 3-month lease on the former millinery shop with an option to extend and began making plans for inventory and staffing. In the evenings, she and Finn spent time together, growing closer with each passing day. They rode out to his ranch several times, where Martha was delighted to see Bella again and openly encouraged their blossoming relationship. On her last night before departing for Missouri, Finn took Bella to dinner at the same restaurant where they had shared their first evening out. As they finished their meal, he reached into his pocket and placed a small box on the table between them. This isn't what you might think, he said quickly as Bella's eyes widened. It's too soon for that, I know. But I wanted you to have something to remember me by while you're gone, and to serve as a promise of what might be when you return. With slightly trembling fingers, Bella opened the box to find a delicate silver pendant in the shape of a snowflake, hanging on a fine chain. To commemorate how we met, Finn explained, though I hope you never have to endure anything like that again. It's beautiful, Bella whispered, deeply touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. Finn came around the table to fasten the necklace around her throat, his fingers warm against her skin. "I know you need to return to Missouri to settle your affairs," he said as he resumed his seat. "And I understand that you may decide that remaining there is what's best for you. But I want you to know that I have come to care for you deeply, Bella Johnson, and whatever you decide, I will respect it." Bella reached across the table to take his hand. "I care for you too, Finn. These past weeks have shown me what might be possible here, not just for my business, but for my heart as well." The following morning, Finn saw Bella off on the eastbound stagecoach, their farewell filled with promises to write and hopes for a swift return. As the coach pulled away, Bella watched Finn's figure grow smaller in the distance, the silver snowflake cool against her skin, a tangible reminder of the man who had found her in the wilderness and in doing so had helped her find herself. The 2 months Bella spent in Missouri were busy ones. She arranged for Thomas Harper to take over management of the store, with her Aunt Agnes providing oversight. She sorted through her parents' belongings, keeping treasured mementos but selling or donating much of the rest. The modest house where she had grown up was rented to a respectable family, providing additional income to fund her Western venture. Throughout it all, letters flew back and forth between Lexington and Greeley. Finn wrote of his daily life on the ranch, of the changing seasons, of how he found himself looking for her in rooms she had only briefly occupied. Bella replied with accounts of her progress, her hopes and occasional fears about the changes she was making, and how she carried the silver snowflake with her always, a talisman of what awaited her in Colorado. In late May of 1876, nearly 3 months after the blizzard that had nearly claimed her life, Bella Johnson stepped off the train in Greeley, Colorado. The landscape had transformed from the snow-covered wilderness of her first arrival. Now green grasses waved in the prairie breeze, and wildflowers dotted the hills surrounding the town. And there, waiting on the platform as she had hoped, stood Finn Reeves, his face breaking into a radiant smile as their eyes met. He strode forward, propriety forgotten as he swept her into an embrace that lifted her feet from the ground. "You came back," he said, his voice thick with emotion as he set her down but kept his arms around her. "I promised I would," Bella replied, her heart so full she thought it might burst. The next weeks were a flurry of activity as Bella's store took shape. Finn helped wherever he could, building shelves, moving heavy crates, offering advice on local tastes and needs. By mid-June, Johnson's Dry Goods opened its doors to an enthusiastic reception from the townsfolk of Greeley. With the store established and running smoothly, Bella and Finn's courtship flourished in the open. They attended church socials together, enjoyed picnics by the river, and spent quiet evenings on the porch of his ranch house, watching the sunset paint the sky in spectacular colors. One evening in early August, as they sat side by side in rocking chairs on that same porch, Finn took Bella's hand in his. "Do you remember when I gave you the snowflake pendant?" he asked, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Of course," Bella replied, her free hand instinctively going to the silver necklace she still wore daily. "I said then that it was too soon for something else," he continued, his voice steady despite the nervousness she could sense in him. "I believe enough time has passed now." Finn slid from his chair to kneel before her, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside lay a ring with a modest diamond flanked by 2 smaller sapphires that reminded Bella of Finn's eyes. "Bella Johnson," he said, his gaze never leaving hers, "you came into my life unexpectedly in the midst of a storm. Finding you that day was the greatest blessing I've ever known. I love your strength, your determination, your kindness. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears of joy blurred Bella's vision as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then more firmly, "Yes, I will marry you, Finn Reeves." As he slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to take her in his arms, Bella marveled at how her greatest ordeal had led to her greatest joy. Lost in a snowstorm, she had found not only safety but a love and a future brighter than any she could have imagined. They were married on a crisp October day, when the cottonwood trees had turned golden and the distant mountains wore their first dusting of new snow. The ceremony in Greeley's white clapboard church was attended by nearly the entire town, along with Bella's grandmother from Denver and her Aunt Agnes from Missouri. Martha, beaming with pride and joy, had outdone herself preparing a feast for the reception held at the ranch. As the newlyweds shared their first dance on the wooden floor laid especially for the occasion in the barn, Finn pulled Bella close and whispered in her ear. "Do you know what I thought when I first saw you lying in that snow?" he asked. "That I was half dead and needed saving." Bella replied with a soft laugh. "No," Finn said, his expression earnest. "I thought you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, and that if you lived, I'd do everything in my power to make you smile." "You've succeeded admirably," Bella told him, reaching up to touch his cheek. "I've never been happier than I am right now." Life as Mrs. Finn Reeves brought new challenges and joys. Bella continued to run her store in town while learning the intricacies of being a rancher's wife. The two endeavors complemented each other surprisingly well. Her business acumen helped streamline the ranch's operations, while the connections Finn had throughout the territory opened new opportunities for her store. Their first child, a son they named James after Finn's father, arrived the following August, bringing a new dimension of love and fulfillment to their lives. 2 years later, they welcomed a daughter, Emily, named for Finn's sister. Through the years, as their family and businesses prospered, Finn and Bella never forgot the extraordinary circumstances of their meeting. Each winter, on the anniversary of the day Finn found her in the blizzard, they would stand together on their porch, watching the snow fall gently on their land. "You're safe now," Finn would say, echoing the words he had spoken when he found her half frozen in the wilderness. "I found you." And Bella would lean into his embrace, the silver snowflake still hanging around her neck, and reply, "And I found you too." On their 10th anniversary, with their children growing strong and their enterprises thriving, they hosted a grand celebration at the ranch. Friends and family gathered from near and far to commemorate not just their marriage but the life they had built together. As evening fell and lanterns were lit around the property, casting a warm glow over the gathered guests, Finn clinked his glass to call for attention. 10 years ago," he began, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd, "I was riding home after a blizzard, checking for strays, when I came across something unexpected in the snow." His eyes found Bella's, filled with the same warmth and love that had sustained them through the years. "Some might call it chance or luck that I took that particular path that day, but I believe it was something more, a destiny that brought me to the woman who would change my life forever." Cheers and applause greeted his words as he raised his glass. "To my beautiful wife, Bella, the strongest, most courageous woman I know, thank you for saying yes to a life with me. These 10 years have been the best of my life." Bella, her eyes shining with unshed tears of happiness, raised her own glass. "And to my husband, Finn, who not only saved my life but gave me a reason to live it to the fullest. You found me when I was lost, and in finding you, I found my home." As the celebration continued around them, Finn and Bella slipped away for a moment of privacy on the porch where he had proposed. The night was clear, stars scattered like diamonds across the velvet sky, with a sliver of moon casting silver light over the land that had become their shared legacy. "Any regrets?" Finn asked softly, his arm around her waist. Bella leaned her head against his shoulder, contemplating the question. Their life together had not been without hardships, droughts that threatened the cattle, economic downturns that affected the store, the loss of Martha to old age 3 years prior. But through it all, their bond had only strengthened, their love deepening with each challenge faced and overcome together. "Not one," she answered truthfully. "Every step of our journey, even the difficult ones, has brought us to this moment. How could I regret any of it?" Finn pressed a kiss to her temple, his touch as tender as it had been on their wedding day. "Nor do I," he murmured. "Finding you was the beginning of everything good in my life." As they rejoined their guests, Bella's heart swelled with gratitude for the storm that had once seemed her doom, but had instead led her to her destiny. Lost and found, she had discovered not just safety but love, not just shelter but home. And in Finn's arms, she had found the greatest adventure of all, a life shared with her true partner, built day by day through love, respect, and unwavering commitment. Years continued to pass, bringing changes both expected and surprising. Their children grew into fine young adults, James following in his father's footsteps with a natural aptitude for ranching, while Emily showed her mother's head for business, eventually taking over much of the day-to-day management of the store. Greeley itself transformed from a frontier settlement to a proper city. with paved streets, electric lights, and a growing population drawn by the fertile land and economic opportunities. Bella and Finn's enterprises expanded accordingly, adapting to the changing times while maintaining the principles of quality and fair dealing that had been their foundation. In 1901, as the new century dawned, they celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. Though Finn's hair had begun to silver at the temples and lines of experience marked both their faces, the love between them remained as vibrant as ever. Quarter of a century, Finn mused as they sat together in the study of their ranch house, now expanded and modernized but still retaining the warmth that had first welcomed Bella all those years ago. It seems both an eternity and the blink of an eye. Time is strange that way, Bella agreed, her fingers intertwined with his. Especially when it's filled with so much living. And living they had done raising their children, building their businesses, contributing to their community. They had traveled, too, fulfilling Bella's youthful dreams of seeing more of the world. They had visited Europe twice, marveled at the wonders of New York City, and explored the wild beauty of the Yellowstone country. Through it all, the silver snowflake pendant remained Bella's most treasured possession, a constant reminder of their extraordinary beginning. It had become something of a family talisman, brought out for special occasions and cherished as a symbol of how love could bloom even in the harshest conditions. As they grew older, they gradually passed more responsibilities to their children and trusted employees, allowing themselves more time to simply enjoy each other's company and the fruits of their decades of labor. They were respected elders of the community now, sought after for advice, their story of love born in a blizzard told and retold as part of local folklore. In the winter of 1916, exactly 40 years after Finn had found Bella in the snow, a particularly heavy blizzard struck northern Colorado. As the wind howled around their sturdy house, they sat before the fireplace, a quilt shared across their laps, memories playing across their minds like moving pictures. "I still remember how cold I was," Bella said softly, watching the dancing flames. At 62, her honey-colored hair was now streaked with silver, but her eyes remained as bright and perceptive as ever. And then suddenly, there you were, like an answer to a prayer I hadn't even known I was making. Finn, his once dark beard now completely white but his blue eyes still capable of making her heart skip, squeezed her hand gently. "Best day of my life, finding you in that snow, though I admit you gave me quite a scare." "I gave myself quite a scare," Bella chuckled. "But look at all that came from it, our children, our grandchildren, this life we've built." Their family had indeed grown to include 5 grandchildren now, with a 6th on the way. "Do you think," Finn asked thoughtfully, "that we would have found each other somehow even without the blizzard? That some things are simply meant to be?" Bella considered the question, her mind drifting through the countless moments that had made up their shared life, the joys and sorrows, triumphs and challenges, all woven together into a tapestry of love that had withstood the test of time. "I believe we would have," she said finally, "though perhaps not in such a dramatic fashion. Some souls are destined to find each other, I think." Finn nodded, a smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Well, I'm grateful it happened the way it did. Makes for a better story to tell the grandchildren." Bella laughed, the sound as melodious to Finn's ears as it had been when they were young. "Indeed it does. She was lost in a snowstorm for days, and the cowboy said, 'You're safe now, I found you.' And she's been safe ever since," Finn added softly, leaning over to press a tender kiss to her lips. Outside, the blizzard continued to rage, much as it had on that fateful day 4 decades earlier. But within the walls of their home, surrounded by the evidence of their shared life and wrapped in the warmth of an enduring love, Bella and Finn Reeves remained a testament to the extraordinary power of being truly found. As the years continued their relentless march, Bella and Finn faced the inevitable challenges of aging with the same grace and partnership that had characterized their entire relationship. When Finn's knees began to trouble him too much for the physical demands of ranching, their son James took over the day-to-day operations completely, with Finn serving as advisor and elder statesman. Similarly, Bella gradually handed more responsibility for the store to Emily, though she still kept the books with the same meticulous attention to detail she had always shown. They were proud of their children's capabilities, seeing in them the best parts of themselves combined in new and promising ways. In 1926, as they marked their 50th wedding anniversary, a grand celebration was held in their honor at the Greeley Town Hall. 3 generations of their family gathered, along with what seemed like the entire population of the county. Old friends and new, business associates and neighbors all came to pay tribute to a couple whose story had become legendary in the region. The mayor presented them with a proclamation declaring it Reeves Day in Greeley, citing their countless contributions to the community's development and prosperity. There were speeches and toasts, music and dancing, laughter, and a few sentimental tears. Throughout it all, Finn kept Bella's hand clasped firmly in his, as though even after half a century, he couldn't quite believe his good fortune in finding and keeping her. Late in the evening, as the celebration began to wind down, their eldest grandchild, 20-year-old Sarah, approached them with a leather-bound book. "Grandma, Grandpa," she said, her eyes bright with excitement, "we've all worked on this together, the family, I mean, and some of your oldest friends, too." She placed the book in Bella's hands. Opening it, Bella found it filled with photographs, letters, news clippings, and handwritten memories chronicling their 50 years together. There was even a carefully preserved article from the Greeley Tribune dated March 1876, reporting on the stagecoach robbery and Bella's miraculous rescue by local rancher Finn Reeves. "Oh my goodness," Bella breathed, turning the pages slowly, each one a treasure of recollection. This is our whole life together." "Not quite all of it," Finn said with a wink. "We're still adding chapters after all." Indeed they were. Though they had slowed down considerably, both Finn and Bella maintained active interests and involvement in their family and community. Finn had taken up woodcarving in his later years, creating beautiful pieces that were sought after throughout the region. Bella had become an avid historian, documenting the early days of Greeley and the stories of its pioneer families for future generations. Together, they still enjoyed riding in their carriage automobiles, having never quite won Finn's trust to picnic in the same meadows where they had courted so many decades before. On clear evenings, they would sit on their porch, watching the sunset and reminiscing about the countless days they had shared. "You know what I think about sometimes?" Bella asked one such evening in the autumn of 1927 as they watched golden light fade from the distant mountains. At 73, she moved more slowly now but retained the same quiet strength and intelligence that had first captivated Finn. "What's that, my love?" Finn asked, his weathered hand covering hers. "I think about all the different lives we might have lived," she said thoughtfully. "If the stagecoach hadn't been robbed, if the blizzard hadn't hit, if you had taken a different path that day." "And," Finn prompted, knowing there was more to her contemplation, "and I can't imagine any of them being as wonderful as the one we've actually lived," she concluded with a smile. "Even with all its hardships and sorrows, all its unexpected turns, this life with you has been more than I could have ever dreamed." Finn raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "I feel the same way, Bella. Every single day with you has been a gift." Time continued its inexorable progress. The world around them changed dramatically. Automobiles replaced horses on Greeley's streets, radio brought distant voices into their living room, and the Great War redrew the maps of Europe. Through it all, their love remained a constant, adapting and evolving but never diminishing. In the winter of 1930, as another anniversary of their remarkable meeting approached, Finn fell ill with pneumonia. Despite the best efforts of doctors, his condition deteriorated rapidly. Bella remained at his side constantly, reading to him, reminiscing about their years together, or simply holding his hand in comfortable silence. On a snowy February morning, with white flakes drifting past the window in a gentle reminder of how their story began, Finn opened his blue eyes still bright despite his illness and gazed at his wife with pure love. "Bella," he whispered, his voice weak but clear. "I'm here, my darling," she replied, leaning closer. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything, for our life, for loving me." Bella's eyes filled with tears, but she managed to smile for him. "Loving you has been the easiest, most natural thing I've ever done," she told him honestly. Finn's lips curved in a faint smile. "Remember what I said when I found you in the snow? You're safe now," Bella recited softly. "I found you, you'll always be safe," Finn murmured, his eyelids growing heavy. "Even when I'm gone. Because once you've been truly found, you can never be truly lost again." They were the last words he spoke. Later that day, surrounded by his family and with Bella's hand still clasped in his, Finn Reeves peacefully closed his eyes for the final time. The grief Bella felt was profound, but not debilitating. She had loved deeply and been loved in return for over 50 years, a blessing few were fortunate enough to experience. In the days and weeks that followed, she found strength in the legacy they had built together and in the continuing love of their family. She lived for another 7 years, remaining active in the community and family affairs for as long as her health permitted. She wore the silver snowflake pendant every day, touching it often as if to connect with Finn across the divide that temporarily separated them. When Bella finally joined Finn in the spring of 1937, it was peacefully in her sleep. Their children found her the next morning, a serene smile on her face and her hand curled around the silver snowflake. They were laid to rest side by side in the Greeley Cemetery, beneath a simple headstone that bore their names, dates, and a single line that encapsulated their extraordinary journey together, lost and found in the storm of life, forever safe in love's embrace. Their story did not end with their passing, however. It lived on in their children and grandchildren, in the businesses they had built, and in the community they had helped shape. The ranch continued to thrive under James's management and later his sons. Johnson's dry goods evolved with the times, eventually becoming a department store run by Emily's descendants. But perhaps the most enduring legacy of Finn and Bella Reeves was their love story itself, told and retold through generations, inspiring countless others with its message of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of being truly found by love. And on snowy winter days in Greeley, Colorado, when the wind blows cold across the prairie, old-timers still sometimes tell the tale of the young woman lost in a blizzard, and the cowboy who found her, and how that chance encounter in the wilderness became one of the greatest love stories the West had ever known.